So my name is Emmanuelle Ganne. I work at the World Trade Organization in the Economic Research Department. And I spend a lot of my time working on small and medium-sized enterprises and on digital technologies, in particular blockchain. The key word in your question is actually. As you know, SMEs struggle to access trade finance, and trade finance is a critical component of trade. 80% of international trade is financed by some form of trade financing. So it's critical for companies to be able to secure trade finance. SMEs struggle, and the recent Asian Development Bank trade finance gap showed that the trade finance gap remains about the same. It hasn't been reduced. It's still 1.5 trillion. And about 46% of SMEs actually have their trade finance requests being declined. It was slightly above 50%, so it has gone down slightly, but not that much. So it's a huge issue. And there's a lot of hope that digitalization can help. Whether it actually helps right now is another matter. I think there's growing optimism that digitalization and technologies like AI and blockchain can facilitate access to trade finance. But what the Asian Development Bank study showed is that for the time being, this is actually not really the case. The trade finance gap remains as high as it was in recent years. There are a lot of initiatives. There are a lot of initiatives in trade finance. We just talked about that, with many consortia having emerged over the past few years, some startups as well. And some of them are very promising, I believe. They already offer solutions to SMEs. We.trade, for example, is an interesting consortium that is already in production. So it's not a proof of concept like many others, but they actually have real products. But there are also a number of other initiatives in transportation. The famous one is the IBM Maersk TradeLens platform. There are some others that are in the making and that are likely to emerge in the coming months. There's a lot in also when it comes to logistics. I know that FedEx, DHL, UPS, they're all looking into blockchain. And we've seen a few proofs of concept as well in the insurance sector. But in relation to trade, this remains very limited, still in its infancy. I wouldn't say managing the consortia, but I think there's a critical role for international organizations like the WTO or the ICC, since you mentioned them, to bring the different stakeholders together and to coordinate action on this front. What we see right now is a digital island problem. We have all these platforms that have emerged. That's great, except that they don't really talk to each other. They don't really talk to each other at the technical level. They don't talk to each other at the level of processes, at the level of data models. And what we need to do now is to have a collaborative effort at a global level to try and work on some standards, but standards at these different levels: technical, processes, data models, etc. Okay, so yes, indeed, we'll have a global trade and blockchain forum at the WTO on the 2nd and 3rd of December. And the idea is really to bring the different stakeholders, private sector representatives, but also have governments. The WTO works with governments. They are our stakeholders. So to bring them together, bring also representatives of other international organizations to discuss global trade and blockchain. Because when it comes to global trade, it's very important to look at all the different applications, all the different components of global trade. Trade finance, yes, but also transportation, logistics, border procedures all together, so that we can try and really remove frictions and build synergies.